recording?
Yeah, so we have obviously we have only one real topic on the agenda. It's the budget. So Scott was supposed to do a city administrator's report, but I found out kind of later yesterday that he's not in today. So we'll scratch that from the agenda, but then the mayor can finish out with his update that he does. So I think I just kind of wanted to dive into the budget and try to walk through it, see what questions you have, clarify anything that you need clarified. Obviously, questions that you have are probably questions other people have, and this will be posted online. So maybe we can address a bunch of that for others as well. I haven't had a chance to catch up with any council members since the budget was distributed. So this is kind of the first discussion we're having. And typically at this stage, you know, the budget contains all the operational stuff, but the big spreadsheet has been the typical focus of the council and kind of walking through that and, you know, what are these things? Why are they in there? So hopefully you guys have had a chance to look at that too. But with that, I just kind of want to open it up to see if you have questions or need clarification and try to walk you through anything you
let me go grab my book because I wasn't prepared to go over some of my questions, but let me go grab it real quick.
Okay, sounds good.
I can start if I may. I'm hoping that Rich can hear. One of the questions I had was because of your timing, are the LTAC requests, since they haven't been approved by council yet, are those factored into 106 or 105?
The only ones that are in 105 currently are the convention center requests, because those are the only ones that I had at the time of the budget preparation. So typically what we do after council approves the LTAC awards is I adjust those and bring those modifications back before we approve the final budget. So just the convention center ones, it includes the debt, the operations, and the capital fund, as well as the 3 events that Diane asked for funding for.
Okay. Rich, go ahead. I have a couple others that are sort of generic, but.
Let me go through my chicken scratch here. So sorry, guys. Is there anything else we want to talk about in the meantime?
I'll pop in again while you're looking, Rich. I notice in 2 places, the ARPA budget and in sewer, I think it's sewer, there's $130,000 for the force mains. So does that mean they really want 260,000, or is that it seems duplicative?
So, okay, those aren't actually force mains. What those are is when we met with Public Works, we found out that our controls on our sewer system, like the electrical panels or what have you, they're outdated, they're archaic. And so we are having to replace all of them. So we're starting with kind of a tiered approach because Public Works said there's no way, they have to take training and they have to like prep for this. And they said there's no possible way to get them all done. So what we did was we started cycling some of them into this budget, a reasonable amount per the Public Works Department that they thought that they could do over the next couple of years. So we took part of it from sewer and part of it from ARPA because we didn't have enough funds in sewer to pay for all of it. So we kind of did a matching thing between those 2 funds for those.
So we just had a tour and they gave me some numbers. There's the variable switches you're talking about, right? So
Yes.
They've already replaced 5 of them out of 14.
Okay.
And they need computer modules for all 7 buildings. Mm-hmm. So my figure that I got when I talked to them was about 170,000 for everything they need. So we're a little high on that, which I suppose is fine.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're talking about the same things, because I think this includes 4 of the modules that they're asking to get replaced in this budget cycle, and then they're gonna ask for an additional however many next budget cycle. So that was the number we got from Public Works as to a cost on what those were.
Must be something different then, because we went over to the building and I talked to, I think it's Richard, the supervisor,
Ricky?
Ricky and Nick. And I thought that was what it was, is those variable switches.
So these are the ones that we're talking about. They're called the VS infrastructure upgrades.
Yep.
So in the spreadsheet, the 130 for ARPA is in the note is it replaces the control system at the vacuum pump stations, and it's 2. So
Right, 2 in each.
yep, 2 each. So there's 2 budgeted in ARPA and 2 budgeted in sewer, and that's kind of our first phase of getting these up to date.
So we're probably going to save some money, because they said they're about 15,000. And they need a control panel for each building as well, which are about 5,000.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm ready if you're ready.
All right, let's go for it.
Okay, so first of all, please don't read into tone or intent. It's just general question. You gotta teach me. So in the introductory page, Mayor, you talked about doing your best to bring down debt about $3.3 million in this budget. So my question, starting right there, was, is that 3.3 million kind of our minimum payment on certain debts, or were you going to cash flow overpay some of these to bring it down quicker?
Do you want me to take that one?
Well, we can. I think it's a combination of both, but Angie can give the hard numbers.
So yeah, the amount in the budget is minimum payment. Of course, the LID fluctuates based on how much revenue we bring in, how much people pay. So that one's getting paid off quicker than the amortization schedule shows, and that's been true the whole time we've had that LID. The bonds, we can't prepay those. So those are set. We can't pay them off until they have call dates, which is, we don't have any right now. So the one that we're advance paying is the LID, because we can. The rest we can't do anything with. We did pay off a bunch of bank loans in this current budget cycle. We could accelerate payments on those, but those are done. So it's kind of a moot point, but.
Okay, so the 3.3, it's not like we've got a minimum payment due of $500,000 and we're paying $1.5 million to lower it even more.
Yeah, we can't.
Okay.
I wish we could, but we can't.
And again, I'm just going by, sorry, there's no rhyme or reason here.
Sure.
I listened to the city of Aberdeen and abatements, and I found out that the building next to the driving school next to Breakwater was $750,000 to tear down that building and make it right. I look at our abatement fund and it's minuscule. I know we don't have things like that, but do we feel like we're not doing a good enough job? I mean, should we be putting more in that abatement fund?
Well,
That was what worried.
yeah, well, and I agree with you, but just because, as I've learned, in order to abate something, it takes a long time to do it. And so really in probably in 3 years is where we need to up the abatement process. And in our nuisance fund, our nuisance ordinance, that one of the requirements are that if we abate a property and it's owned by a bank, then the bank has to pay for it. That doesn't help us if we've got a piece of property that no one actually, the owner, we don't know where the owner is. But right now that we're focused on properties that have bank loans on them, or someone is renting that property. And so right now, even though it looks on a low side, I think there's, if all of a sudden we had to have more abatements, that we can pull out a general fund, or we can pull out of the council's emergency fund if we needed to, but I don't perceive, just because of how long it takes legally to get things done, that in this budget, that we're gonna need more money than we have now.
Yeah.
Maybe next year, but not right now this year.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? Because that was one of my questions. Do we have anything in the offing that's becoming more immediate with some of the properties around the city? There's that one on Edgewood and Rain. There's another couple down in that.
I believe we have a
Area.
total of 6 properties we're looking at right now.
Okay, and are any of them imminent?
They're not imminent, because the one that is the closest is right now, Brent is right now writing up a response that we're taking. We are moving forward.
Okay,
Everything else is going through what we have to do is we have to, if we're going to actually, if it's a property that someone isn't supposed to live on, that we have to red tag it, and our
Right.
building official needs to do that. Then we have to give them an opportunity to fix the problem. You know,
Right.
so a lot of times what's happening is, oh yeah, we'll fix it, and then they don't fix it, or they fix it part way, then it goes back. And then, so there's a whole step that we go through, and each time we
Right.
have to go to court. And on one of the properties, we have the problem with the person continues not to show up at court. So that we're working through that.
Yeah.
So, but we have a list of properties that in our minds are nuisance, that we've started the process with it. And now with our new building inspector or building official, that we actually have him go inside and inspect so some of those properties.
and then we sell those after we've abated them, so that money can somewhat regenerate, although if you've got a house versus a empty piece of property, there's a differential, of course.
Yeah, and well, who knows what the economy now is, but there are 2 other houses that we were going to abate. But before we got there, someone made a lowball bid on the property. So actually that we never received it. I mean, they fixed the
Yeah.
property, but we never got it. We went through the process, and then they figured the person originally thought there was no value to the home, and found out there was value to the home, and sold it to a lowball person. So.
Okay. Can I change, Rich? I'm sorry for jumping in ahead. There's a couple things that I think would be helpful, and I've only got about 15 minutes before I have to head out. Can we get, John, an inventory of all the police vehicles and all the fire vehicles, including the mileage on those vehicles and the year? So to be 1991 squad car, 100 miles on it, or excuse me, 100,000 miles, whatever. If we could get that, I think that would help us a lot. It would certainly help me.
Yeah, that'd be easy, right, Angie?
Yeah, we have a list that we update with WCIA every year. It might
Okay.
not have the mileage, but that could be something we could add to it. So yeah, we already have a version of it. We might just have to update it for your specific needs.
Okay, good. And that's all the fire and all the police.
It has all of our vehicles, so it even has public works too.
The tour in the public works yard to actually physically look at those vehicles was really helpful.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'm glad that the council was able to go, because I think that was when I started the budget process, I did a very similar tour and talked to our crew chiefs of what they were
Right.
doing. And that's part of the reason why I built the budget the way it is, because obviously they've been neglected.
Right.
Okay, my next question was Fund 114, repair and demolition. What's that one specifically been used for in the past?
That's our
Other than
abatement fund.
obviously-
That
Pardon?
is our abatement fund.
Okay, all right. Fund 350, hotel capital improvement.
That's the convention center capital fund. So when we're talking about soffits and things like that, that would come out of that fund.
Okay, So that's the repair fund.
And that's funded by LTAC.
Under general fund appropriations, sorry, I've got some questions just because I'm ignorant. Finance, $118,000 increase for online accounts payable implemented in 22. Is that a one-time hard cost, or is that going to be an annual cost?
It's annual.
Increase.
So we pay like a monthly subscription service for our online programs. So during this year, we implemented the accounts payable, and then we're starting to do payroll as well. So those will be monthly costs to have those online systems.
So educate me. So let's call it $9,700 a month increase. Is that saving you 1 or 2 employees? Talk to me about how the math works.
No, and this is why, is because those are union protected positions. So any changes in those job descriptions or work assignments would have to be negotiated with the clerical bargaining unit. So essentially the online programs are to get us up to date with current market standards instead of doing everything paper. It reduces a lot of the errors that we see, especially with payroll. Right now, our payroll system is all manual entry. So it's ripe for errors, and it takes a lot more time to go in and fix things on the back end instead of doing it correctly the first time. The accounts payable, that system is meant to just make sure we're complying with our internal policies on our net 30 requirement, things like that. So it's basically just to get us into the current technology with those processes.
And Rich, especially on both programs are things that I feel that are important for the city. Our accounts payable, and I'll just use the example, if it was touching so many different people's hands that we didn't have, I couldn't ask Angie, tell me exactly when did the bill arrive, when did it get processed, who was the person that signed off, and we couldn't pull those reports. Our new system, when it comes in, that I know exactly when the bill got into our system, when it was entered in, when a department had signed off on it, when our bill payer paid it, and I can rank them on when they got actually mailed out. I mean, so it's more of we were losing bills, that, like the bill would go to the wrong department and that person would, I don't know, toss them in the garbage. So there was there. And then as you know, tracking payroll, especially with family leave and everything else that goes with it, that our system was just so out of date that we didn't have a way that we could track, and that we were, there's no way that it was very difficult to go back and make sure that our payroll records were correct, because it was on the honor system. It was just all paper. So that's the reason that we're modernizing. I don't think it's going to be a huge saving from a labor point of view, but just as an efficiency point of view, dramatically improvement from where we have been.
So possibly, because you've got this in place now, we won't be looking to add employees as our city grows and our citizens grow.
Exactly.
That's what I was thinking too. It sort of relieves the stress probably on our current employees, because they're working with a computer system rather than trying to run things around through intersection mail and all the corrections they have to make. So it should relieve pressure for them. And as a consequence, probably down the road, we won't need as many employees to do the job.
Plus, it also improve, to me, customer satisfaction, that when a vendor calls and goes, hey, where's my bill? That we can go in the system immediately and say that we have it. It came in on this time. This is where we are, or we haven't ever received it, so we can work both ways. And it also allows us to take more things electronically instead of actually having them mail the bills in.
Yeah, it's the way we do things right now is so outdated. And, since I started in this office in 2016, I've been trying to get our processes more current, I would say. I mean, the utility department was the first department that was overhauled by doing the online bill pay. And now it's accounts payable and payroll. And so we're trying to citywide. I mean, we have the archiving project going with the clerk. We want to do an online permit system. We've done things the hard way for so long that it's time to start, making these more efficient on us, on the users, on our customers. It's just.
I remember having these conversations, John, you will too, at the last budgeting 2 years ago. We need to get online. We need to get these systems online. So I'm really pleased that you're moving that way. And the online permitting system, I think, is going to be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, and that's part of the lean initiative too. Yep.
Right.
It all kind of goes together.
So that segues into my next one, building and permitting, $151,000 increase. Again, one time or annually now?
That's going to be annual. So all these online systems are an ongoing cost. It's not like a one-time thing.
So it's honestly like $13,000 a month.
Yeah, we got that number. We were looking at a similar program that the city of Aberdeen uses that integrates with our software system. So I asked Councilmember Scott to give us some figures on what Aberdeen pays, and that was what we got back. So it's not cheap, but it will be worth it in the end, especially for the customers, I think, because right now that's probably our biggest complaint is the customers are like, everybody does this online. Why are we still doing paper? So that one's going to be a direct facing to the public, have an effect on them. So that'll be good.
Well, the software purchase itself would be a one-time cost, and then it's licensing and maintenance. Is that right?
Well,
go ahead.
Well, in some of it, the way that they are doing it now is dramatically different than what you typically don't buy a program anymore. You're buying the license.
Okay.
It's recurring. So
it's in the cloud.
They've shifted, yeah. So they've shifted it. And the other thing that on the permitting, one of the number one, our building official has history of doing online. But the biggest win that we would have is that we would be able to digitize all of our permits as well as all of our plans. And so that would cut down the amount of times that people actually have to come into the office to give us the plans. And Roy could just go through and pull it up and look on his own computer and get back the changes more quickly.
And then as they move through the system, eventually any of the people, code enforcement or anybody else, could pull up an address and see if it has the permits and all the applicable requirements, rather than have to make a phone call or go in or whatever, which is also a big time saving.
Yeah,
So
it also. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I was just going to say, part of this too, though, I appreciate having the program, having the licensing. Who's going to do the work to load these things in? How is that going to happen?
It's our permit department.
But who? Because it's going to take a dedicated person.
Yeah.
There's a two-part plan. Is number one, we have an open position that we haven't filled, that we're right now, Kristen's working on filling. We've had great success with Sarah on doing some of the inputting using a temp. So the combinations of those two are who are going to be orchestrating getting these things done. But really, it's just taking a person that we can hire as a temp to get us caught up and get it into the system. So that part, we've already had great success with Sarah and all the city records, that we think that there's no reason why we can't replicate that in planning and permitting.
Okay, but that part of it, isn't in our budget at this point, or is it included in this?
That is in there.
151
Sarah,
grand.
did you have a comment? Sarah, did you have a comment?
I just had a comment because as you filter through all of these online software programs, and I don't think either one of you were at it, but when we did the city chats, we had Morgan Damerow come from the public record or the Attorney General's office. And the big thing for the city of Ocean Shores and the huge impact that these online systems are having, like you're talking about permitting right now, is that we get a lot of public records requests for this information in itself. So when you say who's going to scan it, who's going to do this, all of that is work to get to a greater end. Because as it stands, when somebody wants to come in and get a public record on something that's in the property file that should just be, whoop, let's grab it and send it off. It's a whole thing. It's got to go to permitting, then permitting's got to go pull it, then pulling it, then they've got to scan it. And that's the same thing with the accounts payable system and even some aspects of payroll. So that's what we're working on. HR, payroll, all of that is being scanned into the system now, and we already have that implemented, but it's huge for the aspect, because I cannot say, I want to say in good faith, we've got all the records you've requested here. Well, I have not gone down and checked that little file. All of that stuff will be online in one location, just as is HR and payroll is now. So that's the big thing. And we have put that in for temp services to get it all in the system.
We've been doing a massive effort as a team, boxing records, sending them down to the temp for archiving. And I will say that with the systems that we're upgrading right now, the payroll, that includes myself, HR, our payroll clerk, the AP system includes myself, the AP clerk, all the department heads. So it's this huge team effort to get all of these processes up and going. And it's a huge workload. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work. But we all know it's temporary, because when they're
No, I've had everything I have is scanned, and
Yep.
it's huge to get it started. So I knew you needed people to do it. I just didn't know if they were packed in these numbers.
Yep,
So
they
you
are
could actually get it
definitely.
done. Another one too, I know that the library was asking for a half timer to go to a full timer, which is just, double what they are now. But it had listed $187,000 for 2 years. And I'm, no offense, I know we don't pay a half timer $93,500 a year. So what's that?
It's the benefits. So basically, if you look in that spreadsheet, the current estimate for his pay as part-time is about 50,000. And the 177 that you're seeing as the update to full-time, a big chunk of that is benefits. So when you start incorporating benefits in there, that's when those numbers go up.
Okay. Catherine, do you have some more?
Not that our, oh, no. I guess I would ask one thing. The 0.3% funding for the police, that's zeroed out everywhere that I found. It may be a question for the larger group, but that hasn't gone away, has it?
No, it just basically, it has become part of the police budget overall. So that money goes into the general fund and then funds part of that police budget essentially.
So that was the funding that I get a lot of still comments, 10 years after it passed, that it was supposed to fund a detective and they want to see it separated and all of that. Is there a way to create that line so we can see the funds coming in specifically and the funds going out attached to the 0.3? Because it seems to go in, but it never, now it's zero. Like I said, it's zeroed out. I think that's a concern for a lot of people.
Sure, I can have Nikki do some kind of summary sheet on that. I'll write a note for that. I know that we've been through the gamut on adding positions and reorganizing the structure, and so that would be something she could help with.
Right. And then the other question I'm getting, then I'll probably have to pop off, succession planning. We know that the convention center, Diane talked about that, but there's an IT person for succession planning. Who is that and who are they replacing? I mean, I guess I don't know who it would be, but.
So currently we have Lee Fundenberger, our
Right.
part-time. So he's not going to be around here forever. I mean, he does. I mean, he has been working forever, but at some point he wants to not work. So we're just trying to plan ahead. The workload has gone up so dramatically as well over the last few years with all the new security stuff and, you know, keeping stuff up to date, that we felt like this has gone from a part-time, like boots on the ground position to a full-time boots on the ground. And I'm already getting the question about like, well, does that make our IT consultant go away? And the answer is no. The IT consultant is the network, keeping all of our servers up to date, all of our cybersecurity stuff up to date. This position that Lee currently fills is going around from department to department, plugging in printers, making sure our phones work, helping people with the actual hands-on stuff.
Right.
So it's kind of just I've been getting requests from department heads saying we need somebody here 5 days a week, because 2 days a week right now just isn't cutting it anymore, because it's just everything is elevated with the IT stuff over the last few years.
I speculated that probably was it, but I wanted to verify so I can tell my guys at the meeting in a half an hour that I was correct.
Yeah.
And it is to move Lee's position to full-time, I
Yeah,
assume, when he leaves.
and get some cross training in. The IT group is real worried that if he does leave and we don't have somebody cross trained, that's going to be catastrophic for us. So there needs to be some overlap in there to get, and it takes a while to get them up to speed on all of our stuff. So.
And last, the utility aging report, we haven't seen that lately. If we could get that as part of the meeting, that would be really helpful. I'm going to sign off. I'll view the rest of this once Sarah posts it. Thank you so much.
Hey, Catherine, are
Yeah.
you going to have time today to send that list of your questions?
Well, I've gone through my first run on the budget. I'm all the way through all 200 plus pages, but I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So I'm not sure if it's today, but I'll probably be soon. And let me ask a question. Am I signing warrants on Monday or Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Guys want me to continue with apparently my micromanager questions?
No,
Sure.
you're good.
Sure, okay. Teach me about contingency fund for the council. We've been doing 70 grand a year, nothing in it this year. Do you just get to a point where you go, hey, as long as we have blank dollars in there, we're good? Or are you just trying to like, we need money other places and we're okay in this one?
Okay, so Angie and I went back and forth on this. Okay, originally, when I was on the council, this was a priority for me to put in. We put it in. Now, to get us to spend any money out of it, it's going to need a super majority to do that. And that would mean that the council would need to come up with something that they feel that is a huge priority to do it. I don't really see, based on our budget, that we are in a position where we're going to need to tap that. And that's a pretty big number to have sitting there. With it.
Right.
And Angie convinced me that right now, unless the council wants to put more money in there, but once it goes in there, it's harder to spend, which is the right thing to do. That's the reason why we didn't put any more money in.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did tag that one. So basically I have a list of, it would be nice to do if we have a surplus going into the next budget to maybe add that back in. So there's a list of things that we've like historically done where it's like, you know, do we need to keep doing this, or should we just try to add it back in if there's extra money available, which is kind of, it hit that list. Like if we have a surplus, it'll be coming back as a potential for council to add back in.
Okay. Street reserve fund, no transfers in it this year.
Yeah.
And I know that we've got, I mean, you know, streets and bridges that are not happy.
Yeah. The reason for that, if you look at our TBD fund, the 634, we are sitting on a huge amount of money in that fund. And the street reserve was created before we started the transportation benefit district as a way to do some of those street maintenance projects. But now that we have the TBD and we have sufficient funding in there, the street reserve is kind of like, do we really need this anymore? So anyway, we have sufficient money to do what we need to do in the TBD fund, so we didn't add
Okay.
any money in the street reserve.
Okay.
Because we need to start using that TBD money. That's the intent. That's what the citizens voted it in for. I don't want
Yeah.
to keep sitting on that money. Like, we need to use it. That's the purpose. So,
Okay, emergency care fund, forecast is calling for $144,000 decrease in capital outlay. Why a decrease in the emergency care fund forecast?
we took the South Station renovation out.
All right. $250,000 increase in beverage sales at the convention center. Is that because of my Christmas party?
That's actually a new line item that Diane asked to add in. So that was originally included in just the catering line item, and
Okay.
she wanted it separated because it has become
Okay.
a large number with
All
Chelsea.
right.
And not just because of your Christmas,
All right.
probably a little bit.
So I'm under the understanding that remind me, we're working on hiring someone to do a facilities plan study. Is that right? Or is that just rumor? And I guess that's a mayor question.
Let's see. We have, so that also got moved to the, it'll be nice if we have a surplus list. We didn't have the money in to keep the fund balance where council asked it to be. So we included a downtown revitalization plan because we thought that was more of a higher priority that people were asking for. And we put the capital plan on the, let's talk about it as part of the surplus discussion.
And Rich, one of the things that you're going to see is there are things that I think are still a priority. It just, in order to balance the budget, we
Sure.
had to make some cuts, and we think, based on everything that's going on, that there will be out of first quarter, there's going to be extra money, and that is where we're going to reallocate some of those things.
Mhm.
Okay. One of the, I learned something new every day. For the first time in my life, I'm on a homeowners association. We have a capital improvement plan, a reserve plan. It shows us what we have to do literally over the next 20 years. And it's year by year by year. And there's small adjustments that you make, especially when prices increase. But you know what it does? It takes the average person. It's really easy for the average person to look and understand. And we council members are made up of so many different things, and so are mayors. You know, we're not all on the same, we all have different attributes. And this facilities plan to me was something that we could do to invest in our city for the next 50 years so that we can assure ourselves that through the finance department and through the then current mayor and the then city councils, they don't have to think. They know that, oh my gosh, we've got a bad budget. We need to maybe not hire 2 more people because we've got $1 million worth of maintenance that we need to do, and we need to do our job in maintaining our infrastructure in our city buildings. So it's very scary to me if we don't, as a group, as this group, that we don't get a facilities plan together, because it's a roadmap and it's so simple to follow. It's idiot proof. And right now, quite honestly, I don't know if you need a new roof or, how many tanks we need to redo. And I don't know if any of us do. And so I hope that we can find a way to prioritize that even more than downtown revitalization, in that it's not been done yet. So we have nothing to maintain, but the buildings we need to maintain. We need to maintain the infrastructure.
Yeah,
So
I do have a note. So it is in here for $150,000, and it's under the items to consider adding back in.
Okay, because that's what I recall that same number. Did somebody just make up that number? Or do we actually know that that's what it costs to do one?
I think council gave us that number as we were kind of round tabling it, was just, I think it might have also been something that Councilmember Scott said that she's
Oh,
seen
did it?
other ones.
Okay, all
that
right.
Cost about that much, so. What will be helpful, and I'll provide it to council, is this items to consider adding back in list, because I have it out by fund, and I think that'll be
Good.
helpful for you guys.
Sorry, I'm reading these other two notes just to make sure I'm not, these other three, I don't want to waste, we've gone on longer than probably we should. And I can figure them out later.
Well, or send them to Sarah.
Yeah, unlike Catherine, I don't need to go over everything I already went through, but I got through, I think, 84 pages. I didn't do the whole thing yet, so I'll get that done this week.
And my priority as mayor is that I want to have the council, so we have a discussion about whatever we've got in the budget. So everyone understands it. And so I'm willing to study sessions or whatever we need to do to get it. Cause I know Angie and I went back and forth with the department heads a lot. And I know that I said no to a lot of different people. But I that you as the council are the ones that are going to actually pass it. So it's very important that you are supportive of whatever the direction that we're going.
Mhm.
Well, it's no fun to micromanage, but I needed to ask some questions because
Yeah.
I'm new.
Right. That's
Yeah, that, if you guys could get your questions to Sarah, that would be wonderful. Because I'm sure, like I said, if you have the questions, everybody else probably has the same ones. So.
I doubt that, but
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised though. It's a lot. It's, over 200 pages of information to digest. I tried.
but
my best.
it's laid out really well. You did a great job, and it's just reading. You did a really great
Yeah.
job. It's for me, it's not that big a deal, but
Yeah,
I
and the
just don't
vast
know the
majority of
background.
it is operational, where we it's payroll. I mean, you have to pay payroll. So that's why I do that big master sheet. That's kind of like these are kind of the things that we don't necessarily have to do if we don't want to do. But so I try to help in that cause to kind of pinpoint the stuff that council can say, yeah, we don't really think the downtown plan is a great idea. Let's do the capital plan instead. So that's the discussion that we need to have.
And as crazy as it is, and you might think it's not as important, I gotta tell you, the overviews are helpful
Yeah.
in the front of each one.
Those are helpful to all of us too, because after a couple of years, you kind of go, what is even in the budget anymore? So I'm like, we were supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and we haven't done any of those things yet. So those are helpful for our budget tracking and making sure we're on top of our projects as well.
Okay.
So,
Miss Sarah, anything
And-
else?
Well, I just wanted to say, and it's not just the council on these questions. What I find is that the citizens will call all of our offices, and it ends up being the same questions you guys are asking. So that's where I'm at, is that I think it would be a good tool if we can gather them and get answers and put them with the budget study session agenda. Then it's just another little thing, like a citizen could say, oh, I had that exact same question. Now I won't have to reach out to a council member to ask or what have you. So
You
I
don't,
think it's a good tool for the citizens also.
are you suggesting I write down to you the ones that I just crossed off my list?
No, I already wrote them down.
Sorry.
and it's on video. So
Yeah, it's on video. No, you're fine.
All right.
John, do you want to wrap up with your update?
Well, my update is, this is my first budget. We spent a lot of time, I think 2 weeks of just working through and the department heads and boards came to me, and they all have really great ideas, but we only have X amount of dollars to spend. So that's where we did some slashing, but we also know that there's some money that we think that based on how that we're proceeding, that we will be able to add back in, but again, that will be a conversation that we need to have. I agree with your view on the capital project list. I think it's important. I think we have
Capital buildings. What do we call that?
A capital facilities plan, I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you just look around the city, that in the past that we don't have a plan, and you know, and we can just look at the police station. You know, that should have been on some plan 10 years ago, or whatever it's going to be. Our water tanks would be another great example. I mean, there's just things that we need to have a plan to do it. And you know, in your business, I'm sure that you have the plan. In my business, I have the plan. The PUD has the plan. Unfortunately, the city doesn't, but that is thinking ahead. And unfortunately, a lot of times in the city that we are living at the here and now versus where do we want to be 10 years from now. So
That's a
plan helps.
legacy.
Yeah.
That's a legacy that you as the mayor and this council could do for the next 50 years, is set all the councils and the mayors and the staff up for success, and no longer have people upset with the way things look. It's
Yeah.
like, we've got a plan. It looks bad today. It's on the plan for next year. We got it. Let's move on.
Right. Now, again, as you know, the plan that we could have a capital facilities plan, but you have to take the next step where you actually have to fund it, and then you actually
Yeah.
stick to it, you know, and
Yeah.
that is a challenge.
Discipline.
Well, that's a challenge for the city government to do that, you know, because unlike you and I in the business, is we run the business and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Every 2 years we have elections, you know, and priorities could change.
Yeah, and I think the perfect example of this is the Public Works Department, honestly. Like, we've let all of our stuff get so outdated that now we need to do it all at once. Well,
Yeah.
there's stuff on we still need a grader and a dump truck, but that it's not like the street sweeper that looks like Pigpen. So the sweeper is probably more of a priority, and we'll do the grader and dump truck later. But it's just that same, I mean, we had that conversation this year with Public Works for, I think, probably the first time ever, with all the crew chiefs around the table. And it was enlightening. Like, we just have let stuff go for so long. We shouldn't be doing that. It's because everything's broken now and it's all needing replaced at one time.
Well, let's just say our city's only 50 years old, and we've now learned that we need to do things better, and other cities have had 150 years practice.
Yeah, it's being strategic instead of reactionary. And I think we're reactionary right now. We don't fix stuff till it's broken. And it's like,
Right.
Mhm,
Maintenance is always cheaper than repairs.
agreed.
Yep.
So, okay, well, I think I'm good. Anything else?
Yep. That's it.
All right, I will do my 3 things that I said I would do, and we'll have the study session on the 26th and kind of go through more questions and whatever council wants. So,
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
all right, thanks, Rich.
Right.
All right,
Bye.
bye-bye.